3 years ago, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, bald as a cue ball, 25 pounds lighter, and pale as the moon. Chemo will do that to a man. Stage 3 colorectal cancer. And a sexy kind of cancer, not that there's a good one, but you sure don't see any ribbon campaigns for that end of the body. My daughter, Casey, she came to the hospital exactly once. Brought me a get well card she probably bought from a Walgreens 10 minutes before. Then she ghosted me. No calls. No messages. No, how you doing, Dad? And I'll tell you, when you're laid up in a hospital bed with an 4 drip and nothing but the sound of your own beeping vitals, the silence from your only child is louder than any ambulance siren. That girl used to call me Daddo. Used to curl up in my lap to watch Matilda and eat popcorn, one piece at a time like it was fine dining. But people change, especially when they get a whiff of easy money. See, before all this happened, I wasn't rich, but I did all right. Small construction business in Duluth, steady contracts, owned the company outright, no debts. Add to that a 3-bedroom house with lake views, a cabin in Wisconsin, and a couple of rental units I picked up in my 40s. Enough that a smart accountant could call it a modest fortune. I never told Casey the details. Figured if she thought there was a payday waiting, she'd stop trying at life. Turns out, she stopped trying anyway. 2 months into treatment, I got a text. Hey, Dad. Can't make it this weekend. Got a friend's bachelorette thing. I never asked her to come. She offered. But I guess my 4-pole wasn't as festive as tequila shots in Nashville. After that, nothing. For 3 years. But cancer's a tricky bastard. It beat me down, but it didn't finish the job. And once the treatments ended, the scans came back clean. The doc said I was lucky. I said I was prepared. Didn't tell a soul, though. Not Casey. Not even her mother, who had been out of my life since the Clinton administration. Only one person knew. My lawyer, a crusty old Navy vet named Marvin who smelled like pipe tobacco and had a handshake like a lobster claw. We rewrote my will. Every asset, every account, every property, even my damn coin collection, all redirected to the very cancer center that pulled me back from the edge. The good folks at St. Elias Oncology Fund. Tax-exempt and everything. And for Casey? Well, I didn't leave her nothing. I left her something better. A letter. Now I live a quiet life these days. My neighbors think I'm some kind of hermit, the old guy on the corner who only goes out to mow the lawn or pick up mail in his flannel pajamas. But I watch. Always have. It's a habit you pick up when you've been betrayed once or twice in your life. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee, watching a squirrel try to wrestle a slice of bread up the bird feeder pole, when I saw a car pull into the driveway. Shiny. Overwashed. Rented. And out stepped Casey Lynn. Now, I hadn't seen that girl in 3 years, not since she tossed that Walgreens card on my hospital tray and told me she couldn't handle seeing me like that. She looked different now. Expensive. Manicured nails, highlights in her hair, a designer purse that probably cost more than my riding mower. She walked up the porch steps like she owned the place. Fake smile plastered across her face like someone had painted it on with a broom. Daddy? She called, like nothing had happened. I came as soon as I heard. Heard what? That's when I knew. Someone somewhere had started a rumor. Probably Marvin. I told him to sprinkle a little whisper into the wind if anyone came poking around about my status. Maybe mention something about Mr. Halter passing quietly, God rest his soul. We didn't say who he was supposed to mention it to. But Marvin had initiative. So here she was, Casey Lynn Halter, returned from exile, dressed for mourning but hoping for millions. Oh my God, Daddy, you look so good. She gushed, wrapping her arms around me like I was a winning lottery ticket with a heartbeat. I thought. That I died? I said, stepping back. Yeah, I heard that's been going around. She froze. Just for a second. Like a possum in headlights. Then came the recovery. I didn't believe it. I had to see for myself. I've been thinking about you so much lately. I nodded. Sure. That's why you skipped my last 3 birthdays, and Christmas, and, what was it? Your own graduation. Her smile flickered like a bad light bulb. I was just overwhelmed, she said, clutching that fancy purse like it might shield her from judgment. But I'm here now. That's what matters, right? She was laying it on thick, cooking dinner, folding laundry, even offering to help sort through the paperwork if I needed. I let her fluff my pillows, organize my mail, even peek at the safe in the den. She thought she was being slick. I was giving her just enough rope. That weekend, I called Marvin and told him it was time to set up the reading. We scheduled it for the following Thursday. Said it would be formal, family only. But Marvin had a few tricks up his sleeve. Invited a local reporter who did human interest stories. Told them it was about a community legacy being left to charity. Just a nice old man honoring the folks who saved his life. The day arrived, and Casey showed up wearing a black dress like she was auditioning for a soap opera funeral. She kept glancing around the room, my modest den dressed up like a lawyer's office, with a grin she couldn't quite hide. The will was in a manila envelope on the coffee table. Marvin waited until everyone was seated. "Miss Halter," he said with that gravel-throated calm of his, "before we begin, your father asked that we read something aloud." He picked up a letter. "My letter." Casey's eyes lit up like it was a scratch-off ticket. And then Marvin began to read. The room had that odd stillness, like when a storm's about to roll in but the air hasn't moved yet. We were in my living room, though you wouldn't have known it from the setup. Marvin had turned the place into a courtroom of sorts. Neat stacks of paper, water glasses, even a damn house plan on the side table like this was some polished law office in downtown Minneapolis instead of my Lakeview den. Casey sat stiff in the leather armchair I usually napped in. She kept crossing and uncrossing her legs, one designer heel tapping like Morse code. Nervous energy? Or maybe greed? It can look a lot like anxiety if you're not paying attention. To her left was Marvin, calm as a statue. In front of him, a single sealed envelope. No will. Not yet. Just a letter. He cleared his throat. "This is a personal message from Mr. Halter to his daughter. Written and signed by hand." Casey gave a little smile. "Of course," she said, like this was the part where Daddy apologizes for the hard years and gives her the keys to the kingdom. And then Marvin began. "Dear Casey, if you're hearing this, it means you've come home. That's something I once prayed for, before I learned to stop praying for things that don't love you back." She blinked. I saw her smile falter. Not crash, just tremble. "I want to tell you a story, Casey. One you lived through, but never really saw. 3 years ago, I was dying. Not metaphorically dying. Chemo, radiation, hair falling out in clumps. I was skin and bone and silence. And you? You were gone." I could feel the shift in the room. That slow, cold slide of realization creeping over her spine. "You didn't come back for birthdays. You didn't answer when I called. And I stopped calling after a while, because a man can only leave so many voicemails for the daughter who never calls back. But I didn't die, Casey. I lived. I lived quietly. And I watched." Marvin paused right there, took a slow sip of water. Let the silence hum. The reporter in the back, she was scribbling fast now. I'd invited her under the pretense of a charity milestone, and she thought she'd be reporting on a heartfelt story of survival. Oh, she was getting that, just with a little more edge than she expected. Casey shifted in her chair. "What is this?" she muttered, just loud enough for Marvin to hear. He ignored her. Kept reading. "I watched you post pictures from Cabo, from Paris, from New York. I watched you toast to New Year's and new hairstyles and new lovers. I watched you pretend I didn't exist, because to you, I didn't matter unless I was a headline on a death certificate. But death didn't come for me. Not yet. And in that time, I had some thinking to do. About what matters." Another pause. And this time, Marvin looked up. His eyes locked on hers. "Would you like me to continue?" he asked. Casey nodded stiffly. Said nothing. Her cheeks were starting to flush now, just a hint of red behind the foundation. She thought this was the prelude. The warm-up before the treasure chest opened. She had no idea that she was already standing in the middle of the trap. You ever seen someone try to hold back a panic sweat? That was Casey. She was sitting bolt upright, face still fixed in that polite smile, but the corners of her mouth twitched like they were trying to sneak off and tell the truth. And Marvin? Oh well, Marvin was in his element, reading like he was narrating a documentary about an extinct predator. Calm. Respectful. I swear the man could have read off a grocery list and still made it sound like Shakespeare. "Casey, I remember the first time you asked me what happens to a person when they die. You were 6. Your hamster, Butterscotch, had just passed. We buried him under the oak tree in the yard. You cried for a full hour. I told you something simple, that what mattered wasn't where we go when we die, but what we leave behind. Turns out, I was right. I just didn't know you'd teach me the full meaning of it." She was shifting now, trying to act casual. You ever seen someone who knows they're about to be called out, but they don't know how bad it's gonna be? That was her. Like a poker player with a 2 and a 7, trying to look confident while everyone else was already all in. "You didn't come back for me, Casey. You came back for the house. For the rentals. For the bank accounts. You came back because you thought the last page of my story ended with your payday. But I want you to understand something. That house you're sitting in? It's already spoken for. The money in my accounts? Given away. Every last cent. The cabin up north? Deeded to the cancer center that bought me a second chance at life. And the rentals? Donated, rents and all, to house families going through the hell I went through alone. You could hear a fly buzzing in the silence after that one. Casey's mouth fell open, just a sliver. Not all the way. Not yet. That comes later. Marvin didn't flinch. Just kept going. I didn't do this to be cruel. I did it because what we leave behind should reflect who we were. And Casey, when I needed you most, you left me. When you came back, it wasn't for love. It was for the estate. So here's what I'm leaving you. A letter. A moment of truth. And the one thing I never gave you until now, clarity. Casey snapped. This is bull, she started, voice cracking. Marvin didn't even pause. Just turned the page like he hadn't heard a thing. I hope one day you'll understand that money doesn't fix what's broken. And pretending to care isn't the same as showing up when it counts. You had a father once. You chose not to keep him. Now that hit like a brick to the teeth. Her eyes were wide, red around the rims. She looked like she wanted to argue, but there was nothing to argue with. It wasn't a conversation. It was the truth, bound and notarized. And Marvin? He was reaching into the second envelope. The official will, he said, calmly, like he was announcing lunch. Casey leaned forward. Still hopeful, somehow. Maybe he was bluffing. Maybe the letter was just theater. I watched her try to calculate a twist in her favor. She didn't know yet. Didn't know the real twist wasn't in the will. The real twist was in the crowd. You ever see a gambler smile just before the dealer flips over the river card, and then that smile slides right off their face? That's what Casey looked like when Marvin opened the official envelope. She had that forced composure, the kind that says, I'm not panicking, I'm prepared. But her foot was bouncing like a jackrabbit on a trampoline. Marvin unfolded the document with all the ceremony of a priest handling a sacred scroll. For the last will and testament of Mr. John Halter, he began, dated and notarized 6 months ago. He looked up. Everything, real estate, bank accounts, business assets, is hereby transferred in full to the St. Elias Oncology Charitable Trust. Boom. Just like that. No legalese, no caveats, no except for just gone. Casey made a noise. Not quite a gasp, not quite a choke, more like a soft bark of disbelief. Like someone had punched the wind out of her with a velvet glove. But you can't just, she started, words tripping over themselves. That's not, he never said, I mean, I'm his daughter. Marvin didn't even blink. You were entitled to be notified. And you have been. The document is valid. Notarized, witnessed, and filed with the county court last fall. She stood up then. Not out of anger. Desperation. There has to be something. I came back. I've been here for weeks. I took care of him. That's when the real twist came. Because I wasn't the only one in the room who'd been watching her little act. Sitting in the corner, sipping lukewarm coffee and pretending to be some quiet observer, was a young woman with a press badge and a camcorder. Local news. Marvin's idea. Mr. Halter, she said, polite as could be, do you mind if I ask a few questions? Casey turned white. I smiled. Oh, not at all, I said. In fact, I'd like the community to hear how this foundation is going to support families who don't get visitors during chemo. Casey's jaw clenched so tight I thought she might chip a molar. And that's when the reporter dropped her own little gem. Is it true your daughter hadn't seen you in 3 years before showing up last month? Now that was the knockout punch. She hadn't known the reporter was live streaming. Well, not live exactly, just enough footage prepped and ready for the evening news. And by the next day, it would be online. It was online. Shared, commented, dissected. Headlines like, Dying man leaves fortune to cancer center. A strange daughter learns the truth in brutal while reading. You lost me. Now you lose everything. Father's last words go viral. The comments weren't kind to Casey. People love a redemption arc. But they adore a public downfall. But you know me, I ain't in this for the spectacle. There was one more thing Marvin read aloud before we closed the book for good. A single line at the end of that letter. The room wasn't quiet anymore. Not the good kind of quiet, like after a snowfall when the world feels gentle. No, this was the tense, buzzing quiet of too many eyes on one person and no way out. Casey had sunk halfway back into her chair, arms crossed, lips tight like she was holding back either a scream or a sob. Could have been both. But she wasn't the center of gravity anymore. That honor had shifted to Marvin, and the letter still open in his hand. He looked up once more, took a breath, and gave me a little nod. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded back. Marvin turned the final page and read the last paragraph. The one I wrote in my den at 3 a.m., whiskey glass in one hand, pen in the other, when all the grief I'd been swallowing finally decided it wanted out. "You lost me 3 years ago, Casey. Not through an accident. Not through illness. You lost me through absence. Through indifference. And now, today, you've lost everything you hoped for. Not out of cruelty, but so that you might understand something no amount of money can teach. Real things, love, trust, loyalty, can't be bought. Silence. I mean real silence." Even the reporter's pen had stopped moving. The only sound was the slow tick of the grandfather clock in the hall, marking off the seconds like a judge with a gavel. Marvin laid the letter down, straightened the edges like he was tucking in a child. And then he pulled out a second envelope. Slim, stamped, and sealed. "Miss Halter," he said, sliding it toward her on the coffee table, "this contains your official copy of the letter. No assets, no holdings, just words. Use them how you will." She didn't touch it. Didn't say a word. Her eyes were glassy now, but she blinked hard, swallowing the lump that pride builds when you're not ready to be humbled. "Legally," Marvin continued, "this will has been filed with the county. There are no loopholes, no appeal, no override. It is final. And here's where I'll admit I had a little fun. Because sitting right behind Marvin, mounted to the bookshelf, was a picture frame with a QR code in it. The video. The entire reading, filmed with full permission and timestamped. Posted. Linked. Public. Casey followed my gaze. Her eyes hit that frame like it had slapped her. She knew. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You filmed this?" I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Just said the truth. "It's already been seen by about 40,000 people." She stood then, unsteady, like someone waking from a dream into a nightmare. The reporter didn't move. Marvin didn't move. And me? I just sipped my coffee. Let her sit in it. You see, Casey thought the pain came from losing the money. But what really tore her up, that moment when the glass finally cracked, was knowing that her mask had slipped in front of an audience. A big one. Now you might be wondering, did she ever try to fight it? Did she launch some desperate legal Hail Mary? Oh, she did. And that story? And trust me, it gets messier before it gets clean. Now you might think someone like Casey would walk away quiet, tail tucked, humbled. But nah, not her style. 2 days after the reading, Marvin called me up. "She's lawyering up," he said, sounding about as bothered as a man getting the wrong toppings on a sandwich. "Got herself one of those Beverly Hills types. Big suit. Bigger ego." I chuckled into the phone. Perfect. Let him burn billable hours chasing wind. And boy did he try. First, they sent a letter. Not a lawsuit, just one of those sternly worded threats, full of phrases like improper influence, mental capacity concerns, and potential elder exploitation. The kind of language rich folks use when they're losing and can't believe it's happening. They claimed I must have been manipulated, that I was vulnerable, that someone had convinced me to erase my own daughter from my legacy. Marvin responded with one line and a scanned photo. The line? "Your client's father drove himself to my office, discussed his estate in detail, and completed a cognitive assessment before drafting the will." The photo? Me, in a flannel shirt, flipping off the camera while holding up the date next to my clean bill of health. Case dismissed. Before it even got to court. Still, that didn't stop Casey. She moved from legal attack to damage control. Started scrubbing her social media. Deleted every vacation photo. Tried to make herself the victim. Posted one of those vague paragraphs that sound like grief but read like PR spin. Still recovering from the loss of someone who meant the world to me. Grateful for the time we had. Some things are too painful to put into words. Cue the sympathy comments. Cue the crocodile tears. But internet folks? They ain't dumb. Someone posted a clip from the will reading. Just 30 seconds, but enough. The part where Marvin read, "You lost me 3 years ago." The clip hit Reddit, TikTok, Facebook groups full of folks who'd seen that kind of heartbreak before. You know the type. Nurses, single moms, old veterans with grandkids who never call. They rallied. And the comments turned. Real fast. This man deserved better. That letter should be required reading in every nursing home. Good for him. Boundaries are love too. By the end of the week, Casey had shut down all her accounts. She tried to play the part of the grieving daughter, but the internet had already met the real her. Now let me tell you something that might surprise you. I didn't enjoy her public takedown. I wasn't happy to see her dragged like that. Truth is, I sat on my back porch the night it all went viral, sipping black coffee, staring at the trees swaying in the wind, and wondering if I'd been too hard. Then I remembered lying alone in a hospital bed, wondering if I was going to die without hearing my daughter's voice again. And I figured, nah, some truths just need daylight. Now we're almost there, my friend. But the story ain't done yet. You want to know if she ever came back, if we ever spoke again, if there's any grace left after all that fire. And it's coming up next. It had been about a month. The dust had settled. The internet moved on, as it always does. One week it's your story lighting up comment sections. The next it's someone else's kitchen fire or public meltdown. But real life? That moves slower. I was on my porch that morning, same old chair, same old mug, same flannel I've had since Bush was in office. The lake was still. One of those dead quiet days where even the birds sleep in. Then I heard it. 3 knocks on the front door. Measured. Not frantic. Not cocky. Just steady. I knew before I opened it. Casey stood there, hands stuffed in the pockets of her hoodie. No makeup, no designer purse. Just sweatpants, puffy eyes, and the kind of expression that comes from nights without sleep. She looked older than she had a month ago. Or maybe I was just seeing her for the first time in years. I didn't know where else to go, she said. I didn't say anything. She cleared her throat. I know I can't undo it. The years. What I did. Or didn't do. She hesitated. Or what I came back for. I leaned against the doorframe. Then why'd you come now? She looked at the porch floorboards, like they might give her an answer. Because even after everything, I still wanted my dad. Now, if you're expecting some big emotional breakthrough, tears, hugging, rainbows, this ain't that kind of story. I didn't cry. She didn't fall into my arms. What I did was offer her a seat. Didn't invite her in. Not yet. But I sat with her on the porch. 2 people with history thick as cement and no easy way to pour it out. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I asked her something simple. Why didn't you come back when I was sick? She flinched. Took a while to answer. I was scared, she said. Selfish. And I thought if I ignored it long enough, it'd go away. Or someone else would deal with it. She looked at me then. Really looked. I hated how small I felt around you. Like I could never live up to anything. So I didn't even try. I nodded. That part wasn't your fault, I said. But not showing up? That sure as hell was. She didn't argue. Didn't offer excuses. That was the first good sign I'd seen from her in years. We didn't fix it all that day. Hell, we didn't fix much of anything. But she left knowing something important. There was no path back to what used to be. But there might be a path forward. Maybe. Now you might be a skin yourself. What's a man do with all that hurt once the fire's out? Do I let her back in? Do I trust her again? Do I start from scratch? But I'll warn you, it ain't what most folks expect. A week passed after that porch talk. Casey didn't come back. Didn't text, didn't call. Just left me with her words and whatever weight they carried. I spent those 7 days doing what I always do when life kicks up dust. Cleaning the garage. Something about organizing old socket wrenches and throwing out dead flashlights helps me think. I found an old box in the corner. Had pictures from when Casey was little. Her first lost tooth. Her soccer trophies. A crayon drawing of me that looked like a potato with glasses. And I'll be honest with you. I sat down and cried. Not the loud, dramatic kind. Just the quiet kind where your shoulders drop and the ache works its way out slow. You don't stop loving your kid, even if they break your damn heart. But that doesn't mean you hand him the key again. The next Sunday, she showed up again. No announcement. Just the same knock. Hoodie again. Looked like she hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. This time, I opened the door and motioned her in. We sat in the living room, her on the edge of the couch like a guest who wasn't sure if she belonged. I offered her coffee. She said she didn't deserve it. I poured her a cup anyway. She looked around at the room. Feels smaller than I remember. It's the same, I said. You just grew. She smiled. Just barely. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a check. A donation check. Made out to the St. Elias Cancer Foundation. It wasn't a huge amount, maybe a couple grand, but it was what she could afford. She'd picked up some bookkeeping work. Said she wanted to give back, since I didn't when it mattered. That was the second good sign. I took the check, but I didn't praise her. I just said, keep going. She nodded. I will. And that was it. No hug. No tearful reunion. Just a quiet kind of mutual understanding. Like 2 people standing on either side of a cracked bridge, both unsure if they should start rebuilding, but at least willing to look across. Now folks always ask me, Did you ever change the will again? I didn't. Not because I don't believe in second chances, but because second chances ain't about money. They're about action, time, presence. Casey's new inheritance wasn't going to be a house or a business. It was going to be my time, if she earned it. It's been about a year since that letter was read. The story made its rounds online, got picked up by a few big outlets, even made one of those top 10 savage inheritance moves YouTube lists. Marvin still prints out the article once a month and tapes it to his office fridge like it's his kid's honor roll certificate. But me? I've gone back to my quiet. I still walk the same trails by the lake. Still fix things that don't need fixin'. Still drink my coffee with 2 sugars and a splash of Spite. And Casey? She shows up. Not every week. Sometimes not for a while. But when she does, it's different now. She brings groceries. Mows the lawn. One time, she just sat on the porch with me for 2 hours, not saying a word. Just rockin', watching the sun go down. She's still carrying some shame. That much don't go away easy. But I'll tell you what does change. She's quiet now. Not in a fake way. In a listening instead of performing kind of way. The kind that happens after the world shows you who you really are, and you decide to do something with that truth. She even got herself a job at the local senior center, helping organize transportation and lunch deliveries. No spotlight. No big salary. Just showing up. She told me one afternoon, I figured I'd start giving time to people who don't have much of it left. That's when I knew. She was finally trying to earn what she thought she deserved before. The house? Still in my name, still going to the Cancer Foundation. But lately, I've been thinking, not about changing the will, but about adding something. A clause. One that says if my daughter keeps doing right, keeps walking the road instead of talking about it, maybe she gets to stay here, long as she wants. Not as an heir. As a caretaker. Of the place. Of the values. Of the story. Because stories like this, they stick. Not cause of the money. Or the viral clip. Or the public fallout. But because sometimes, the only way to teach someone what matters is to let him lose it all. And if they come back, not for the treasure, but for the truth, well, that's when maybe, just maybe, you let him find a new kind of inheritance. One without dollar signs. One built with time. And this time, they earn every damn bit of it. And that's the story, friend. From the silence, to the trap, to the letter, to the slow rebuild. Not the flashiest tale. But it's real. Just like the best things in life. And if you ever find yourself on the wrong end of someone's greed, well, don't get mad. Get patient. The lesson always comes. You just have to be willing to let it land.